नहीं कई बार बीच में खड़े कर देते नहीं अलग,
बीच में टी ब्रेक आधे घंटे का होना तो वो एडजस्ट कर लेंगे।
अच्छा इसके बाद रखा हुआ?
नहीं वो आगे है ना दूसरे लेक्चर, तो 11 बजे के लिए बोल देंगे, वैसे तो 11।
हाँ 11 से बाद ही आए तो ठीक, 11:15 बल्कि।
ओके सर एक मिनट पहले। ओके वेरी गुड मॉर्निंग टू यू ऑल। टुडे
मैं अपने आप ही कर लूँगा,
लेक्चर
अपने आप ही कर लूँगा।
सर एक मिनट on genomic assisted breeding for nutritional quality enhancement in col crops, and will be delivered by the Dr. Vikram Kalia sir. Sir presently is working as an emeritus scientist in the division of vegetable science. Before that, sir also served as the professor of horticulture and head of the division of vegetable science. And sir have received many of the awards like University Gold Medal, Commonwealth Scholarship from United Kingdom, Dr. Kirti Singh HSI Gold Medal from Indian Academy of Horticulture Sciences, Lifetime Achievement Award, Himachal Gaurav Award, Dr. B. Chaudhary Memorial Award from Indian Society of Vegetable Science, and Rafi Ahmed Kidwi Award, which is the highest award of the ICR, and also presently working as the Chief Editor of Indian Journal of Horticulture. And sir also developed one biofortified variety of cauliflower, that is Pusa Pita Kesri1, which is rich in vitamin A. So sir have developed more varieties and received many of the awards, but these are the some important awards. So sir, thank you for the.
It's all right, thank you. So good morning. I think before I start delivering lecture, it's better that most of the faces I know, but still those who are new, they can be introduced. Can you quickly go about naming yourself and where you come from? नहीं ये भी बोल दें, इसमें क्या है? नहीं तब भी ये पता तो होना चाहिए ना, मैंने तो इनको देखा नहीं कभी।
Bipin sir from Floriculture Division.
Okay.
Sir Neha Verma, PhD Vegetable Science from PU Ludhiana.
All right.
Sir Vishnu from PU Ludhiana, doing PhD in Vegetable Science.
Okay.
Sir Monica Upadhyay, PhD in Vegetable Science from Vidhanjali Krishi Vishwavidyalaya.
BCKB.
Devani from IRA, Fruit Science.
Okay.
Solution PhD is
From?
this division.
Okay.
Missing from Acharya University of Agriculture, Martin from vegetable.
Which university? NDUTAB.
Rimun Shah Chaudhary, PhD third year from Uttaranga Krishi Vishwavidyalaya.
NSC second year, vegetable science from Arunachal Pradesh.
Arunachal Pradesh.
PhD vegetable science from Dr. YSR MSc second year from Scott Kashmir.
Hello.
Sir Nayani Shobhika Rupur, I'm doing PhD in Vegetable Science from Scott Jammu.
From Squast?
Jammu.
Jammu.
Sir, I'm Kapoor from this division.
Suresh Chandra Gujar, Visa Agriculture University,
Virsa.
Anchal Bhattacharjee from Anand Agriculture University, PhD in Food Science. Sir Deepak Kumar, Bihar Agriculture University, Sabha Bharatpur, PhD in Vegetable Science. Mujib Ahmed, pursuing PhD from SVQT Meerut in Vegetable Science.
Rohit Thompson, PhD scholar, AUAT Moran. Rohit Thompson, PhD Horticulture, AUAT.
NDUT.
Megha Raghavan from Central Agriculture University, doing my PhD from Food Science Department. Sir Krishna Jawahar Nayak from USS Bagalkot, Karnataka, doing third year PhD in Journalism. Okay, I'm doing second year PhD scholar in Vegetable Science from Kerala Agriculture University.
Okay.
Rabina from Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, doing my PhD in Department of Floriculture.
Okay.
Vidya from Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, doing second PhD in the Department of Spices and Plantation Crops.
Sahana from IRA.
Okay, thank you very much. for your introduction. It's indeed a pleasure for me to be here this morning to speak to you all on the subject which is put forth before you. Before I embark upon coal crops in general, it's important that we know what is the genome evolution in Brassica species. As you know that coal crops belong to the Brassicaceae family. So, how the emergence has taken place, there are a lot of species genera within Brassicaceae species, but here as a vegetable we deal with mainly with one group which are called as coal crops. And as you see here, this is a common ancestral parent through mutation and other activities that has taken place in this common parent. These two common ancestors has come into being. One is two ancestor which includes Oleracea group, Raphanus group and Brassica tourneforti species, and A and C type of cytoplasm are included in this. In the second one we have this Fruticulosa, Synapsis and B type of cytoplasm mainly, which has given into Synapsis arvensis, which has this half chromosome as 9, and the common ancestor 4 which has been derived from ancestor 2 has mainly wild type of Brassica oleracea with 9 chromosome, and further from this with the chromosome rearrangement these two groups emerged, one oleracea and one with 10 chromosome which has mainly Repa. So, this is A type cytoplasm, this is C type cytoplasm, and from this again chromosome reduction taken place and Brassica nigra developed with 8 chromosome, and then the digenomic species which has come into being with nigra and oleracea is Carinata with 17 chromosome, and then the other digenomic species Jansia with 18 chromosome, and so that is how the evolution of different groups within Brassica species has taken place. And then we concentrate mainly on coal crops which has 6 crops which we deal with, which has emerged from just one wild type of crop having 18 chromosomes. So, that is the similarity that all of them have 18 chromosomes, that you might be knowing already, and the edible part in all these is different. So, that is the different types of selection pressure right from beginning, which gave into different types of botanical varieties within Oleracea group. Then the diversity we observed within this group is a huge from the color point of view, from the shape point of view, from the inflorescence point of view, from the type of leaf shapes that we have, and finally that we embark upon that there is a lot of nutritional variability that we find. But within this again cauliflower, the inflorescence type of vegetables which are having edible part are broccoli and cauliflower mainly, and in this you find that these different types have emerged from different regions in the Mediterranean, around Mediterranean, with the different shapes of curds and colors giving rise to sprouting broccoli, heading broccoli and cauliflower. And then we now then look at the coal crop scenario in the country, then we know that the coal crops have originated from this wild species that you might have studied already quite a lot of time, and then the coal crops, among coal crops the cabbage and cauliflower are the major ones, cauliflower occupying around this much area, and then cabbage is around this is cabbage and this is cauliflower, and then the contribution of cabbage is more than cauliflower to the total vegetable production, and overall you know that India is second in these. But from the nutrition point of view, protein, carbohydrate, phosphorus and other minerals are a lot of variability in for these nutrient is there. But apart from that, these are the nutraceutical or bioactive active compounds that we commonly call to them glucosinolate, isothiocyanate, sulforaphane, indole, vitamin C, beta carotene, anthocyanin. There is a lot of potential from these nutrients point of view that we haven't looked into them in the past, but now we, as we are moving forward for full nutritional security, although we had been talking about this since long, but now we are totally devoted to this purpose. And then beside that, flavonoids and hydroxycinnamon oil derivatives are also present in these crops. And if we look at the nutritional profile of the cauliflower as per the Harvest Plus, then we find that these are good source of vitamin C, and but we use them after cooking. They can be used in pickles as well as in salad purpose, where this can be consumed much and can be used to maximum of it. Vitamin K, folate, dietary fiber, they are in high quantity, they are in excellent form in this, and others like this, these are in good form, and then these are very good form, then these are in good form. So that means there is a lot of variability with respect to the various nutrients, and within accession there is further variability. So there is a lot of scope for improvement of these traits and developing these nutrient dense varieties, depending upon wherever there is a problem of deficiency of either of these, they can be promoted into. And this is with respect to broccoli, where also you find that vitamin C, K and vitamin A or beta carotene and folate and dietary fiber, quite a lot of these things are available in broccoli, and broccoli is considered, of course, the most nutritious crop from that point of view. And for Southeast Asia, where the deficiency of vitamin A is quite prevalent, the utility of this crop is very much, but it hasn't been here. It was introduced in 85, 86 when I first went to do my postdoc there, and we thought that this is the crop which is not in India. We used to study them using this for crossing with cauliflower to transport some genes. But thereafter we totally went for it, and first variety we developed from Himachal Palam Smriddhi in 1995, and thereafter now you find that it's available here and there everywhere, but it took more than 10-12 years to bring it to that stage. Similarly, Brussels sprout, which is not yet adapted, although there is a clientele which look forward for this crop as well, but the farmers' adaptability and the production from that point of view has not yet increased. Of course, in some hilly tracts like J&K and Himachal, Uttarakhand, in some parts it's being grown, and there is a clientele in Delhi that looks forward for this crop. And similarly, kale, which also we have developed a few varieties from our Katrain station, and this is also very rich in various nutrients as you find it here. And then based on that, the breeding objective, once we look into the different types of traits which we have in mind to be improved, then what is our approach? We follow two-pronged approach. One is farmer-based approach and one is consumer-based approach, because that's the one which only requires attention from breeder's point of view. So from farmer's point of view, we have production, productivity, abiotic stresses, uniformity from hybrid point of view, but from consumer's point of view, appearance and then other various traits as you find here, they have been listed. Also they are called as extrinsic traits, like here they are shelf life, taste, nutritional value, all other things, they are consumer centric. And then these are different groups of cauliflower that you have also might have studied quite a lot, and different varieties which have been pushed into the market, especially by the IRI. They are quite a lot, and recently also we have pumped a lot of varieties in early sector as you see here, and then also hybrids we have pushed recent one into group 3, and then in the late group from Katrain station. And then within broccoli, as I mentioned, that this is the first variety we developed, which is green sprouting broccoli, and then the pale group which is good in carotenoid as a Kanchan, and then Vichitra with purple head. Then a lot of cabbage variety also developed mainly from different institutes within the country, especially from Katrain station, and also the purple sector which is now being looked into. Similarly, in case of Nolcol also, earlier we used to study, and you might have studied that white Vienna and purple Vienna. Purple Vienna didn't pick up much as the preference was for green type, but later on we developed some variety from Katrain. One is Pusa Virat, and one we developed from Palampur University as a Pusa Palm tender knob. Then this is the type of the plant material that we look into for developing new varieties in Brussels sprout. Presently we haven't concentrated only the old variety which is introduced, Hills Ideal from Katrain station, that's multiplied and seeds made available to the needy. Similarly, in case of kale, there is a lot of variability from leaf shape point of view, flat leaves, and this is one variety which we have developed from our Katrain station, and there is little clientele for this crop yet, but in hills and especially where the leafy vegetables are more preferred, it's good for from various nutrients type. So, the future goals from that point of view is from quality point of view, extrinsic quality or intrinsic quality. Extrinsic, you know that curd, shape, size, all these things, the market buying is based on those traits, and the other traits which are nutritional, which are innate or which are intrinsic traits, they also we need to concentrate upon for the future, and that what we will be studying. And the transporting of genes, whether it's for biotic, abiotic stress or for quality traits, we have to go back to our wild relatives, and here different species which are called as alien species, and here our concentration is on Brassica oleracea, but there are very less genes of interest in this crop. That is why we have to look forward to other species, that is monogenic species. These are monogenic and these are digenic species. The closer one like for oleracea is an Apus and Carinata, from where also we are looking for genes to be transported to make further improvement in this crop. And then how we can make improvement, whether we have to for looking for genes of interest, there are 4 gene pools where we can retrieve genes of our interest: primary gene pool, secondary gene pool, tertiary gene pool and quaternary gene pool. So, the primary gene pools means real relatives or the closer varieties or within species variety which can be crossed easily, and then if we do not have genes of our interest in primary gene pool, then we have to look to secondary gene pool, where we have to resort to some tissue culture techniques like embryo culture and other things to retrieve genes of interest from other relatives. And then if the genes of interest is not available in that sector also, then we have to go to tertiary gene pool, where from we can retrieve the gene through somatic hybridization, through protoplast fusion, etc. And if the genes of interest are still not available in that gene pool, then we have to go for quaternary gene pool. That means looking for genes which can help in increasing the quality of our crops, retrieving genes from microbes, from other living organisms. So, transgenic route that we follow. And then in cauliflower itself, from quality point of view, there are certain genetic defects or physiological disorder, we call to them as, this is one is bracting. Nutritionally it is not bad, but from extrinsic trait point of view it is important that when you go to buy the cauliflower, you won't look for such things you will leave in the market. So, we have to make improvement in this. And then the second one is ricinus. This is an electron microscope photograph where the curd does not look normal, it looks as if the peduncles have lengthened of individual flower pre-floral buds, and they have given this ricey appearance. And these also do not have any effect on the quality of the product as far as nutritional quality is concerned, but if the such cauliflowers are harvested and taken to the vendor shops or to home, these buds would be smothered and they will become a source of infection for flies and other things. The browning will take place and then ultimately produce will rot. So, this is actually one which should be, that is why the comparison. And then there are other some genetic defects. Pinking also we observed in, especially in the late group, when it is exposure to the cold temperature, that gene governing those traits reflects itself, and you get pinking appearance. Although it is good, nutritionally it is rather good, because you will be getting anthocyanin from this trait, but your interest is to go for white, so you will be rejecting those traits. So, from that point of view it is a defect. So, in the curd they will look, but why I put it here, that while selecting your plant material in the breeding population, you can select the plants based on phenotypic characters, but in the off season those characters will not appear because of environmental variations. So, while selecting, simultaneously you will be taking some piece of curd and growing them in tissue culture, and there you will find these types of leafy structures coming. They will show that whether actually the plant you have selected is going to be pink later on or it is going to be white. So, based on that you can make a selection on that part. So, the nutraceutical bioactive compounds, the important ones nutritionally, that has come into in the recent years, because in the recent years it is important that that we look forward these things, because the people with increasing literacy level, they are more towards managing their problems, health problems through diet rather than going for medicines. So, we have compounds which have nutritional value, enhancing your growth and giving you a good look, but other than that they have characters to control some problem that you will be having, like cancer, like other problems that can be handled. So, they are that is why the nutraceutical means nutrition and pharmaceutical value the product has, the nutrient has. So, these such very many bioactive compounds which are directly important to be increased in fresh product, so that we can take them as while taking fresh diet. But there are other compounds which can be extracted by the pharmaceutical industry, and pills or capsules can be made and can be made available in the market. Already those processes are going on in developed world, but then we also thought in the past almost 2 decades that we had been working on these aspects, and a lot of varieties we have developed which have nutrient dense characteristics available, which can be used, and the rather some of the varieties have also been now used by the private sector to extract those compounds, and vis-a-vis giving seeds to the farmers in a form of contract farming. So, farmers are happy in that sector, because they will be, their crop is already sold before even they have planted. So, they have been asked by the industry to grow 1 hectare, 2 hectare, 10 hectare, 50 hectares. So, based on that the value we have increased of the varieties for benefit of our farmers, of our consumers, and for developing the this industrial sector in the country, which would be contributing to the GDP, which is decreasing. And so, these are the different nutraceutical broad groups and their role in the plant, also as a defense, and their defense role in the human beings. So, they are based on the knowledge, we can make use of them, we can modify our diet, we can make our diets balanced rather than going for pills. If we make our diet balanced from that point of view, then we would rather reduce those problems which would be faced by us in future. So, these nutraceutical compounds have these groups belonging to the different groups these are, and in case of coal crops there are about 120 glucosinolates. Glucosinolates of late it was known before, and now we know that there is a lot of variability from glucosinolates point of view, which have a lot of potential from cancer point of view, as cancer is a major problem especially in the third world. So, it is important that we develop these glucosinolate rich varieties, which can be used by the industry for extraction of those compound developing pills or capsules, and also for fresh consumption. And so, these are there I have just indicated how they help us in reducing the cancer cells. Cancers especially from the colon, mammary gland, pancreas, sort of those problems, and especially these they protect us against oxidative damages, and like broccoli help us in breast cancer. And then types of glucosinolates like isothiocyanate, sulforaphane, glucobrasicin, gluconestrin, indole 3-carbinol, and syngreen. There are many more which has been mentioned in later slides. And here glucosinolates the power of crucifers. So, here also simply I have mentioned that all these coal group is fully loaded with the glucosinolates, different types of glucosinolates which have utility for tackling different type of cancer problems that human beings are facing today. And that is how they help us in targeting the cancer cells. And here these groups, aliphatic glucosinolates, phenyls, indoles, these are mentioned here, and these are the crops in which they have been found. So, you find there is a lot of variability in individual glucosinolates across the crops. So, that means across the crops variability, and within crop variability from these points of view is there. And on finding out that, we know that we have to look for inheritance. So, mainly it has been found that it is monogenic dominant for higher glucosinol content, and these are the methodologies that normally we have to select parents which are high in bioactive compound, then population study inheritance, and the different breeding procedures can be followed depending upon that. But then while targeting these traits from wild relatives, there is always a possibility that the unwanted drags also comes along. So to get rid of them, we have to make use of a marker assisted program. And then to enhance beta carotene content, which is mainly in the colored chloroplasts which are in the cytoplasm, and especially that fully carotenoid biosynthesis chain, and then we have beta carotene which we have to target, and we have to identify the genes responsible, enzymes responsible. Based on that we have to go ahead. So based on that, the OR gene, which was first identified as a mutant in Canada in 1970, and thereafter it was found that it's just sort of defect in cauliflower material, that it was yellow at that time, and it wasn't taken as a positive because cauliflower has to be white. But recently, with the use of the knowledge that the colored things have more nutrition, they are more healthy, the efforts have been made to make use of this, and simultaneously targeting that India is especially have major problem of deficiency of vitamin A. So we initiated a program in 2009 on introgressing this OR gene, enhancing beta carotene in our cauliflowers, so that because cauliflower is eaten by each and everybody, poorest of the poor, and at peak season it's available almost at free cost. So those people can be targeted. It's available for them at free cost in the peak season, and that's why we went forward for this. As Dr. Gograj mentioned that we have one variety in the mid-late sector, the group 3 sector developed, of which the seed is being multiplied, but now we have gone ahead. We have also introgressed CMS system into different groups and different CMS system rather. So diversifying CMS system, and also developed hybrids now using this scheme that I was working on, emeritus scientists. So in early, mid and late group, in all groups we have introgressed this gene, and also from OP variety development point of view as also from hybrid point of view. So in near future the hybrids will also be available for large scale production of this. That is how it was done, and this is the one that we have developed in the late group, early late group. And then from purple point of view also, we were looking forward for quite a lot, drawing our interest from the pinking type of thing. We thought that it's better that we have different colored products in each group of crops available with us, and recently we have introgressed this gene also, and also identifying this is also mutant, PR gene mutant, and of which the inheritance also been worked out, and it's also being introgressed into different groups. Likewise, you see here that different breeding population developed identifying genes, and also the genotypic structure has been mentioned here, giving different types of color appearance within the range within the purple itself. This is with respect to the markers which are linked to this, and the variability of markers within the different types of genotypes that we have used here, which shows different expressions. And then nutraceutical in broccoli that I mentioned already, that sprouting type, heading type broccoli we developed long way back, and they were released, notified in 2003 itself. But the demand with the people is only when it's made available to them and they are told about it. So now they are picking up. Of course, this has picked up quite a lot. It's now being grown in every nook and corner of the country, and this is the hill specific only. This will form heads only in hills. So for high hill areas, this Haritika is important, and this works well everywhere. And these are also good, but they are long time taking. And this is from nutrition point of view. Nutritional variability of all these 4 varieties mentioned has been studied, and you find that there is a variability amongst these varieties. And the glucosinolates biosynthesis and action of genes has been indicated. Mainly it has come from methionine, and which has resulted with the use of myrosinase enzyme, these different types of glucosinolates that I told you earlier also. They have been found here: iberin, iberin nitrile, sulforaphane and sulforaphane nitrile. And so here now it's mentioned that development of broccoli rich in health beneficial glucosinolates. So as the sulforaphane we are talking about, and here it's this MY28 gene expression, which has been found expressing very much in this wild species Brassica villosa, and these are the 2 glucoiverin and glucoraphanin. So raphanin is mainly sulforaphane, and sulforaphane helps finally in tuber inhibition through these various activities. So one Beniforte broccoli has been developed, which has 270% higher availability of this raphanin per serving of crucifers of broccoli compared to other where you find that it's quite less. And this is the way how the development of that Beniforte variety has gone, developing different types of DH lines in through different combinations that has come into being. And 2 QTLs, QTL1 and QTL2 has been found to be contributing quite a lot. So the markers linked to these QTLs can give good impact in hastening the process and increasing the efficiency of developing these nutrient dense varieties, as has been mentioned here. So that was with respect to the whole story about that. But then genomics we are talking about, and it's being studied quite a lot. As you know that since 1900, when Mendel's laws were observed, a lot of work on plant breeding has been done to study the genetic variation, and then finally finding out the favorable genes which can be used by human beings for increasing the production. But as we find that as we are progressing, looking for 2050, lot of climate change and all those things happening, population will be increasing. It's not possible for us to meet out those requirements that. So we need to have some paradigm shift is required in crop improvement technologies, where the use of these genotyping, phenotyping technology and biotechnology is essential. And because selection mainly based on phenotype doesn't give that efficiency, so genotypic based selection has to be concentrated upon. And then QTLs, which are contributing most, for them also we have to use these molecular markers to go ahead with the marker assisted selection. In the recent decade, the marker assisted selection have picked up quite a lot, but it's not as picked up as in other cereal crops, because whenever new technology comes, it's mainly cereals first talked about, and it's only here that we try to increase the efficiency of our breeding program during the last 1 decade, getting so many projects, and now almost every student is working on molecular aspects. Earlier it wasn't there. So that only depends upon increasing the facility, but still we find that in most of the universities this type of efficiency is not increased, even not traditional type is there. So from that point of view, it's important that we look into for this new types of approaches that we have at our disposal to enhance the efficiency of our breeding program. Now, from gene discovery and allele mining point of view, which is important, that we always look forward, our every effort of research should be based upon discovery of new genes. More the genes you identify, more will be the utility of pyramiding them into right kind of genotype using molecular markers. So, that is how you will be enhancing efficiency. And also while you are still studying, when I was teaching different courses, I used to tell students in MSc itself that you have to decide your PhD program yourself. What you want to do, what crop you want to work upon, what kind of problem you want to tackle, because the PhD is the one which should not be given by your guide that you work on this program. So, then it is given, it should be from your interest. So, that interest should come while you are doing masters, that now for PhD I would like to do this program. So, that would be, because you will be interested in that, you will be laying more emphasis on that and you will say that it is my own brainchild that I am working upon. So, initially from this biparental populations were being used for linkage analysis, which is quite slow, not that active, but association mapping when it came into, because it uses the historical recombination events which are occurring in the population, where you will be using different germplasm and also germplasm that you generate yourself during your crossing program. You find a lot of variability within that. So, that sort of material should be used from that point of view. So, association mapping over the biparental progeny that earlier you study, that F2 back crosses, those things will be helpful, but they will be not helpful in identifying the rare alleles. So, then even this association mapping and is also not that effective from identifying rare alleles compared to that. So, we need to go for multi-parent populations for identifying rare alleles, and for that this nested association mapping, which is called as NAM, and multi-parent advanced generation intercross mapping, which is called as MAGIC, where you will be using diverse germplasm, diverse inbred lines developed for different traits in crossing program, and nested association you will be using diverse founder lines and crossing with just one diverse parent for developing population. So, that will be giving you a lot of opportunity for studying the QTL, because QTL the ones which contribute most for various traits, and so that point of view it is good. And that is how for developing NAM population you will be using this approach, that these are the different 25 diverse founders they are called as, or genotypes, and then with one they have been crossed, and that the diverse mosaic of chromosome segments you appear in the population. And then MAGIC population, where you are using this 8 parent, and then ultimately you are coming up with RIL lines, which is composing all the segments of different chromosomes into this. So, that will give you a good idea about that. As you find here that from this association of small detection of smaller effect QTLs, NAM and MAGIC population has the good potential compared to others. Similarly, these genomic selection, the genetic gain is the highest with the genomic selection. That is why the movement towards genomic selection, and genomic selection or genome studies have become possible only after the sequencing became available in different species. So, that has further opened up a lot of potential in that. As you find here that there is a comparison of this Brassica oleracea, Thaliana, Brassica rapa, these all Brassica, and then collinearity and similarity of different chromosome segments, as you find here across these different species using different genetic stocks with the chromosomes. So, that gives you a lot of possibility that for different traits you find genes in one species, how this trait can be through synteny can be addressed in the other crop. So, that is the way that those who does very high throughput biotechnology, they move in that sector. But I would be interested that while you are doing your PhD program, then you have a lot of opportunities and time available and totally concentrate upon that. Even scientists thereafter becomes difficult for them, because they have to look various other activities. But when you are doing your PhD program, you are totally focused to one. Parents are giving you funds and they are not allowing you to be bothered about any domestic problems. So, you are free to think and do such activities, and once you do on the research you do during PhD program, you can harvest its fruits throughout your life. And that is from glucosinolates point of view that has been studied, and the genes have been identified, which again has been, there is a the aliphatic indolic glucosinolate biosynthesis that has been told to you earlier also, that pathways had been catabolized in these Thaliana, Oleracea and Rapa. Again from that point of view, to find genes for different glucosinolates across the species, and then making use them, transporting into the one where you desire them most. Then from molecular point of view, that you identify, especially in cauliflower, these genes identified, from them markers have been identified which can be used for that purpose. And also in case of cabbage, for head shape, yellow green leaf, like that. I mean, this is just an example. And then what I was talking about, that we have introgressed OR gene into our Indian cauliflower using these 3 markers which were reported earlier by workers, but in our case this only one marker worked, and one we developed our own. And as you find here, that this is the donor, then this is the recipient, and these are the OR gene carrying back cross population, and these are the ones which were white, not showing. And these are this is the for background selection, 9 chromosome of our different, this is one variety I have mentioned here, but these are 3 of one is the parent of one hybrid, and this is the OP line which is called as Pusa shell. So, across the chromosome different markers identified for background selection, and this is again that. And here how you find that you get variation in the segregating injection, then you have to select those which are having intense color and have high pigments, and this is that one variety that we developed, of which seed is being multiplied and further concentrated upon. So that was the earlier one. This is that middle 8 group variety or 3rd group variety that we have developed, and these are the new ones which are coming up in early group, which are of October maturity, and the earlier one I showed, that is of December, January maturity, but these are of October maturity in the Pusa Meghna background that we have developed. These are OP1 and the hybrids have not. And then we have new breeding techniques which we can employ for creating variability. Earlier it's mutation breeding which was being talked about, which create a lot of variations, and sometimes it's not possible to find out which one you are interested for, but these are the new techniques where you can make use of them, like cisgenesis, intragenesis, where there is a shift within the species, and then there is a transitory introduction of recombinant DNA, oligonucleotide directed mutagenesis. All are methodology of creating mutation at nucleotide level. Then other techniques are like RNA induced DNA methylation, reverse breeding, grafting non-GM sign onto GM stocks, and then but there are so many, but this is the one which we are now talking about, and a lot of projects by Government of India being funded on this one especially, but these are the 3 depending upon what is your target for improvement, you can pick up the procedure. So, based on that, this is one where I have shown this schematic illustration of ZFN zinc finger nucleus structure and the principle of ZFN immediate genomic modifications. And here the target site of the DNA is ZFN is recognized by left and right half monomer, which are called as ZFPs, and each ZFP is recognizes triplet of nucleotides, and each ZFP has 2 domains, N genome, N domain, and C genome. C domain comprises this FOC1 endonuclease, and when these 2 half monomers join together, then the dimerization of FOC1 endonuclease takes place, and this is the spacer sequence which is of 6 nucleotide, where DNA cleavage takes place, resulting into DNA strand break, which can be repaired by non-homology and joining, and homology directed repair, resulting into mutation at the cleavage site, including nucleotide insertion, diversion, and substitution. So that is how you get variation, and based on that you can put it forward. So that was with respect to ZFN, and with respect to this TALEN, which is another one, and this is the structure of TALEN and principle of TALEN mediated genomic modification. And in this case also the target site of TALEN is this, which is recognized by left and right half monomer, which are called as tail repeats, and each is composed of 34 amino acids. And here also by end joining of these two tails, dimerization of FOC1 endonuclease takes place, and the cleavage of DNA takes place here, resulting into DNA strand breaks, and the repairing of which can be done by non-homology end joining or homology directed repair, resulting into mutation at cleavage site, again with the insertion, deletion, and substitution. And then this is CRISPR-Cas, which also is here you have this schematic illustration of CRISPR-Cas9 system structure and principle of CRISPR-Cas9 mediated genomic modification. And the synthetic guide RNA contains a region which has a 20 base pair length, complementary to the target site on the genomic loci, and it forms a loop which is that mediates the binding of the CRISPR-Cas9 protein. And then you have this protospacer adjacent motif here, and 3 nucleotide away from this is the cleavage site, which results into DNA strand breaks, and again the similar process that it is repaired by non-homology end joining and homology directed repair, and leading to mutation at cleavage site, and which includes this insertion, deletion, and substitution, and then you get mutation. So the first product of in the world, first product of CRISPR-Cas9 program was Cabbage, where in Sweden, where this DNA part which was taken away was coding for protein called PSVS, and this was also called as safety valve in photosynthesis. So that was the first product of CRISPR-Cas9 in the world from vegetables that has come into being, and that is how they have said that this is being consumed, because there is inhibition in Europe of transgenics are not recommended there, but in some countries now have started. But they have demonstrated that we have served these CRISPR-Cas9 cabbage to the people, because it does not create foreign gene, it does not create transgene, it is free of that. All the technology is of transgene, but the product does not contain, and that is why there is no regulatory rule of that of the transgene that is like that. So the key implication in this case is that as a result of rapid pace of advance in sequencing and characterizing plant gene functions that I told you earlier, and also shown some slides of sequencing of cauliflower, the new breeding techniques enabled targeted, more precise and reliable changes in the to be made in genomes in adding, removing, or replacing DNA at specified locations. So these are key functions. The second one is the risk and benefits of the new plant variants are determined by changes introduced, not by the method used to introduce them. That is what I said. And unlike chemical or radiation induced mutation, where you get a lot of other material, unintended material, and here the product is targeted. Once you get targeted mutation, and also it is free from transgene. So it can be concluded that conventional plant breeding based on phenotypic selection has led to dramatic changes in many agronomic traits, yield and disease resistance, and in various crop species. However, the rapid increase in worldwide human population and climate change present great challenges for stable food production are there. So, new generation selection technologies, sequencing technologies have revolutionized genomic research by providing massive parallel sequencing method. Thus, whole genome sequencing and resequencing are commonly used techniques for crop species, and in this resequencing has become important to know the variability. So, that game whole genome things that become possible. So, in this genomic era, genome assisted breeding is emerging as a solution to help meet the great demands of food and nutrients. Vegetable crops provide high quantities of food and represent a rich source of nutrients, vitamins, minerals for human diet. Recently, many advances have been taken place to facilitate development of genomic resources for several vegetable crops. That is also you have seen. And the genomic resources have facilitated the development of genome-wide markers and high throughput genotyping platforms. In addition, several mapping approaches have been applied to dissect complex quantitative traits with high accuracy relative to linkage analysis. That also I mentioned, that NAM population and MAGIC population. And these genomic resources and tools are highly valuable for research community, and they will benefit breeders aiming to develop superior vegetable cultivars with improved traits by increasing selection efficiency through marker assisted selection and or genomic selection. And moreover, current and future genomic advances will lead to the next green revolution and facilitate sustainable agriculture. So, all time revolution they can help going into, and with that I thank you for your patience, and if you have any question, you are welcome. And how many of you are working on these types of aspects or quality improvement? Any improvement maybe, but are you